Thanks for watching this video from Spectator TV. If you enjoy what we do here, do subscribe to our YouTube channel. Just click the subscribe button at the bottom of this video and tap the bell icon so you never miss a video. Are some Brits falling out of love with Germany? With a rising hardline right-wing party and a slowing economy, it seems like Germany has just as many challenges as any other country. In this week's magazine, William Cook asks whether some Brits haven't been oversimplifying the country. He joins me now. So, William Cook, thank you so much for coming on to Spectator TV. You write in your piece that liberal Britain has fallen out of love with Germany rather rapidly recently. First of all, can we talk about what's happened in Germany to make people reconsider their rather rosy views of the country?
Certainly. Well, I mean, three things have happened, really. One is that Merkel's left, and this kind of talisman of the kind of liberal left in Britain kind of exited the stage. So maybe there isn't quite this kind of totem pole for kind of progressive Britons to look at and get slightly dewy-eyed about anymore. The AfD, Alternative for Deutschland, has been on the rise. To what extent that is a hard left party or a far right party, a hard right party or a far right party is a matter of debate. But it's certainly caused quite a lot of disquiet in Germany and also in Britain, certainly among people on the kind of progressive side of politics here. And also the third thing, I think, is the German economy has had a slowdown. Germany's been in recession, albeit from a pretty big head start. My view is that this is a cycle and it's going to come out of it. But nevertheless, I mean, I think it's a kind of reevaluation, really. I don't think things are quite as bad in Germany as the papers like to make out. But equally, I also don't think they were quite as good as they were before. So I think, it's a kind of wake-up call for people in Britain. Things were not... It's a big, complex country with 80-something million people living there, and a lot of industry, a lot of big cities, a lot of small towns, and it's got a lot of the same problems that Britain has. And I think, Britons are kind of coming around to that idea.
Yeah, because there was a moment, maybe especially during and before Brexit, where, people were thinking, there were articles and books written to the name of what does Germany get right, all of these kind of things. It's like, what can we learn from Germany, the real leader of Europe, and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, why Germans do it better. I mean, that was a sort of convenient hook. And the books actually... John Compton books are actually kind of more kind of nuanced than that. But even so, I mean, it was a nice idea, wasn't it? I mean, it was partly because we were all stuck in lockdown and kind of watching the telly and obsessing about the news. And of course, Trump was going wild on Twitter, and there was this kind of logjam in the British system in the post-Brexit era, particularly with Theresa May. And then after the Theresa May logjam, you had the Boris Johnson roller coaster. And people who, at the time, who didn't want either to be in this gridlock with Theresa May or in this kind of rather chaotic and unpredictable setting with Johnson, and then looking across the pond and seeing Trump going on Twitter and saying all sorts of stuff, Merkel looked like the only grown-up in the room at times. And, some of that sheen has come off. Another big thing that has changed, of course, with regard to Merkel is that one of the few things that Trump got right, possibly a stop clock tells the right time twice a day, is that, he did sound off about Germany's dependence on fossil fuels, Russian fossil fuels in particular. And Germany's actually done a U-turn on that pretty quick. And it's quite remarkable how quickly they've changed tack. But you've got to say he was kind of right. And, it was a necessary kind of change. I think the invasion of Ukraine did mean that Germany's had to rethink, and it doesn't look like it's kind of way out in front the way it did to people before.
Yeah.
Bit of a naive point of view, I think. But I mean, it was understandable. Like I say, if you're stuck in lockdown, glued to the telly, and all you've got to watch is 24-hour news, and you see Merkel shuffling around looking, businesslike, and you see Trump and Johnson and May all kind of doing their different things, it's a natural conclusion to come to. But I think some of the sheen has come off the Merkel legacy, certainly.
And I think it's always been more of a reflection of domestic politics here, what we think of foreign countries, right? I mean, it was almost less about Germany itself, our view of Germany, and more about what we reflected on domestic politics here, because it was more, oh, look how bad Brexit is, or look how bad Trump is, look how stable they are. with no actual interest in understanding Germany to the degree, for example, that you do. And you write in your piece, for example, the difference between Berlin and the countryside, the difference between different demographics in Germany, all of these things, not actually what people are interested in.
Well, absolutely.
They're just interested in Germany as a foil for the UK.
Yeah, and I think that, as you say, that applies to a lot of countries, America as well, for instance. It's tempting to kind of look for what we want to find in these countries. And certainly if you go to Germany, yes, you can go to Berlin or Cologne or Hamburg and meet a certain kind of demographic and come back with a completely different point of view than if you go to small towns or villages or the countryside or farmland in Bavaria or whatever. It's a very, very diverse place. And rather like America, I think America's a helpful analogy. I mean, it's a federal system, rather like America. Local politics, regional politics is possibly more important to a lot of Germans than national politics. Their state capital is their capital, Northern Berlin. They're kind of, you wouldn't say looking inwards, but they're often rooted in their own communities, and it's not like all Germans are Berliners by any means.
Yes, absolutely. And it's interesting that this Merkel legacy is being reevaluated now in the years since she has left office. I mean, Russia, you mentioned, is one way in which it's being reevaluated. I also think, I write about China, I look at China. When you look at Germany's China policy, that I think also has some level of reevaluation that will come in the future. You look at the Comprehensive Agreement on Investment, which is the Chinese EU financial deal pushed through by Merkel very much. But at the moment, it's dead in the water because the EU Parliament will not ratify it. And that's, again, another Merkel legacy. You say that the war in Ukraine has made Germans reevaluate Russia. The Chinese reevaluation, I think, hasn't quite come yet. And I think it's fascinating to me how Merkel's legacy could be changing even after she leaves office.
Absolutely. And I think we only saw one side of the coin. I mean, to be fair, going and covering 2017 election, for instance, and going back in 2021 for the Spectator and other people too. I mean, I never felt that the Germans were quite as rosy-eyed as certain people, starry-eyed as certain people here in Britain were. We tended to see the kind of foreign policy she presented. She was the right person at the right time in terms of foreign policy as it seemed then. I mean, obviously not now in the light of Ukraine, but at the time, we tended to just see the foreign policy rather than the domestic picture. It was a lot more mixed. I think the other thing to remember about Germany is, I mean, the system's very different there in that not just in the Bundestag and the German National Parliament, but all the way down, it's a whole network of coalitions. It's the Constitution, which, partly is a legacy of Britain's role in recreating Germany after the Second World War, the Bundesrepublik, completely new country, essentially, is that it's almost impossible for one party to sort of drive through everything they want to do, or for one leader to. I mean, we tended to see Germany equals Merkel, but actually on the ground, it was much more of a sort of collective process. And usually a case of not just in the Bundestag, but also in the regional parliaments as well, different parties working together. And of course, the wild card now is the rise of Alternative for Deutschland, AfD, and the fact that this is a party uniquely almost in German politics, modern German politics, that the other parties won't work with. And that is the big question now, because they're polling something around 20% at the moment. And normally when a party gets to that level, that you'll find on regional level, even in national level, they're working with other parties. And there are some quite unusual alliances in German politics. For instance, the CDU, which is roughly speaking the Conservative Party in Germany, is working on, in national government with the Green Party. And also, historically, a lot of times they've done it not just on a national level, but on a regional level as well. And yet AfD is the one party that the other parties won't work with. And Friedrich Merz, the CDU leader, Merkel's successor in that regard, he then had to row back quite recently because he was saying, we're never going to work with these people on a national level, but, we have to maybe think about it if there's he just kind of floated the idea really, that of the possibility of working on a local level, and then had to row back on it very, very clearly. I mean, he never said he would, but he just kind of raised the idea, and then the reaction was quite strong. But if you are going to have a party which is polling 20% in a sort of, system of proportional representation and coalition governments on regional and national levels, then it's quite a big step to say that if this party's on 20%, we're not going to have anything to do with them. But that is the situation at the moment, and that is the big debate in Germany at the moment. Is should we ban these people? Should we think again? Whatever. I mean, and obviously it throws up a lot of difficult historical questions as well.
But your point to people who are concerned about the AfD, people who are concerned about the economic slowdown, is that Germany has never been that perfect, but at the same time, it can also overcome these current issues, which, frankly, all modern democracies face.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think what's happening is that the CDU, I mean, this is another thing, the Christian Democratic Union, the CDU, Merkel's party, was always a kind of Heathite conservative party more than the Thatcherite party, but it was a conservative party nonetheless. And she really took it bit by bit, very gradually, for over 16 years in office, but she took it to the centre ground. Away from the centre-right to the centre, almost made it a kind of soft left party in some respects. Now, this was politically very astute in terms of domestic politics, in that this really emasculated the SPD, which is the kind of social democratic soft left party in Germany, and kind of, stole a lot of their territory and left them with nowhere to go. But it did open up a space on the right, and this space has been filled by AfD. I think what's going to happen is the CDU is, and I think it's already starting to happen, is going to be moving back towards becoming a centre-right party again. And this will prevent there being a really big breakthrough by AfD. I think it will be more manageable, but it's still significant, it's still troubling, and it's still a cause for concern, certainly.